Wonderful. We are here. We are back. So, Laura, what a pleasure to have you on with me and that we're going to do this every week. Isn't this amazing?
It really is. I really look forward to it. I'm so glad. It's just very refreshing and uplifting. And I just love doing this with you. So I'm so glad you just decided to ask me to be a co-host. So yeah, it's awesome.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. And people are getting more and more involved in the chat. So everybody watching, do click the button to enable you to be able to comment. We love questions. We love hearing how you feel about what we're talking about. We have my lovely moderator, Cara, in there. So, for example, we have someone being moderated probably that says, these guys are frauds. I'm not quite sure how we're being frauds, but that person probably is not very happy. So
yeah,
we wish you well, sir or female, but we will keep it moving. Anyway, yes, so can everyone feel really, really comfortable with jumping in and participating in the chat. It's great for us. We want to come here and volunteer our time and our energy and our knowledge and our wisdom every week so that you guys can learn about things that maybe you hadn't thought of before, and also it's great entertainment and also some things to think about afterwards and maybe expand your thoughts about certain areas, whether it's to do with aliens, interdimensional beings, and all things weird and wonderful in this world. So I was thinking, and it's so funny because Laura says to me, so what should we chat about? And I'm like, well, my angels just literally, they just shoot it in just at the last minute. They said, well, everybody has heard of President Eisenhower. Everybody, even in Europe, it's a thing, okay? So it's like, well, we have President Eisenhower's great-granddaughter sat here, Laura Eisenhower. But how is it that she knows everything she knows? How is it that she is such an expert in so many areas? And so what I was guided to do was to ask Laura to maybe tell us and to really not feel like she needs to condense it. Like, let's get the long version, because if we do this once, we can always refer people back to this show and be like, hey, we covered that in show 2 or 3 or whichever this one is. So Laura, what was it like growing up, with such a strong, powerful, famous name in America, and then just take your time working your way towards, this amazing, like literally Laura's mind is like a library of information. So we can work our way there, but take your time, because I just think that this would be really nice for everyone to really get to know you well.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much. I know a lot of people aren't familiar with me, so I think it's a really good idea for people to get to know me a little bit more. I was born in England, actually. I was born in London. And
do you know where? That? Do you know where?
I was born at home at a place called Fitzwarren Gardens.
Oh, interesting. Well, that makes 2 of us. Both born in England. Carry on.
Right. Yeah, and we moved to the States when I was about 3 or 4. And my parents ended up splitting up around the age of 4. And so, yeah, it's on my mother's side of the family. She ended up legally changing my name. People don't normally carry their mother's last name. And I didn't start to do that until I began to put out information about disclosure related stuff, because a lot of what took place in his administration has been largely held in secrecy. And I just really meditated upon it, really connected with his spirit, and just made sure that, he felt it was appropriate. And I really felt, okay, I kind of need to draw more attention to this topic, and also just the link and closeness we have. And my mom raised me too. And I'm where I just felt just really connected. So yeah, at a young age, we were going to the Gettysburg Farm before it became a museum. Mamie was still alive, so my mom would take us there. And I remember being just a small child, around 4 years old. That was after we moved to the States, holding her hand while she was in bed. She had just had a stroke, and she probably had just a few months left after we visited her.
Sorry again. So this lady that you're holding, this is your
Eisenhower's wife, Mamie Eisenhower. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. So Mamie Eisenhower, I got to meet her. We spent some time at the farm, which has now become a museum. So it's always surreal going there, because it's like, oh my gosh, I remember eating at that table and playing in the little sun room or whatever. And it's a lot more surreal for my mom, of course, and Anne, Mary, and my uncle David, which they're all siblings. Those are all the grandchildren of Eisenhower. Anyway, so I got to meet Mamie, but Eisenhower was always very present and almost like preparing me for these times. And I don't normally just have that kind of contact with anybody who's transitioned. I mean, I've developed my psychic abilities going to a clairvoyant institute later in life, just to really work on those kind of abilities that we all have. But he was just always very close and present with me. So I was getting major downloads at a really young age. A lot of it had to do with archetypal energies connected to the divine feminine and goddess energies, just really tuning into that path, what might have taken place in our galactic history, how the planet became the planet, and some of these mythologies and stories that I just felt really connected with. And so that was kind of the deeper soul journey, going into sort of the underworlds and navigating all of that, and connecting into just this divine blueprint that we all carry, which some would refer to as the Christ Sophia. And so I was like obsessed with all that, and love and sacred union and hierogamic union. And so that was sort of my own personal sort of thing, and just feeling a strong connection to the Christ energy and just really feeling into that. And that level of kind of protection. I had some interesting experiences on a multidimensional level. I was having a really hard time being grounded in my body. There was so much about this information coming in, and that's where it all began. And I ended up later in life studying things like medical astrology. I pretty much memorized the I Ching. I did it so much. The I Ching is a book. It's a divination book. And it just really helps you to get to know yourself, right? I'm not into spells. I'm not into manipulation when I use tools like astrology or tarot. I use it as a way to gain self-knowledge and to help me to heal and to help me to be grounded and to help me to understand the different forces that are happening. So that was always there. I didn't do so great in school. I never went to school. I was one of those kind of students that just had an empty chair. I managed to graduate. Then I moved into wilderness expedition leadership. But anyway, growing up in this family was really interesting because we were so close, right? And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm in a presidential bloodline, as I began to really learn about the cabal, the deep state, the Illuminati families, one has to ask themselves, okay, is there something there connected to that? I better explore that. So I did a lot of energy work. I did go to Clairvoyant Institute, like I said, and I just did a lot of my own energy work, especially just going off into the wilderness. It helps you to really just get in touch with yourself. And I did some hypnoregression, and I was really kind of amazed and just really touched by just how love-based this family is. Even if, because he was in that position, he rubbed shoulders with some very kind of dark characters that he later kind of warned us about with the military-industrial complex. I really have gotten to know him as a spirit, his connection with Val Thor, who's from Venus. And I know a lot of these concepts when it comes to extraterrestrials might be a little bit much for people, but a lot took place during his administration that I've learned about. So I was recruited to go off planet in 2006. I've shared a lot about that story. It was to be a permanent colonist on the planet Mars, and to not be here during this particular window period of ascension, which I was being very prepared for as a child. I was getting the downloads, and part of the preparation is don't let them take you. Don't let them take you away. And I wouldn't have anyway, but I think the warning, helped, because when the recruitment happened, I'm like, this is probably what they were talking about. And I had to really fight hard to get out of it all. And that's kind of a long story. We can always do another show about it. But yeah, being raised in this family, we didn't have trust funds. We all worked very, very hard. I think a lot of people assume being related to a president, you must be like living extravagant life of luxury or something like that. But no, we've all worked very hard. When my mom and dad split, we lived in kind of a rough area of Rochester, New York, in a duplex. And yeah, there were bars on the store windows, and kind of like a rundown area. And then my mom worked real hard, met my stepdad. But we would always get together as a family. Like, we'd do family reunions. We would all meet at my grandfather's house, Eisenhower's son, for Thanksgiving in Easton, Maryland, on the Chesapeake Bay, where he eventually moved. And we were so close. Like, he would tell me so many funny stories. He could like really, really get me. And he sort of got sort of the black sheep sort of vibe, and certain things that I just didn't want to do that might have been traditional for Eisenhower women to do, that had to do with kind of socializing and sort of kind of rubbing shoulders with sort of more, I don't want to say elite type people, because that word, I don't know. But I'm like, I don't vibe with that. And he was really proud of me. He's like, good, good, good. Because you really get it. You're a warrior. And I didn't want to disappoint my family. But anyway, we got real close. He told me some really funny stories. He actually said, actually, I'm a hippie at heart. Not like, like the good kind. And I'm not saying there's bad kind, but I think people know what I mean. There's some
yeah.
real weird, right? But he would whisper that to me. But he said, but I have to write these stories because these stories need to be told about the wars that have taken place. And he served in the war. And it's very rare for a descendant of a president, especially a son, to serve in a war. So he's got a very, very interesting bio, John S.D. Eisenhower. He's written a ton of books. And we were really close. He was starting to teach me how to fly a plane when I was like 16, I think. And I lived close to him for a while when I was in the Gettysburg area. And he went out of his way to, spend good time with me. My Aunt Anne just passed away. She was in New York City, lived in New York City. And she was an incredible aunt. Her name's Anne Eisenhower. I don't know. Some people might have heard of her. She was an interior decorator. But yeah, my Aunt Julie, which is Nixon's daughter, was partially like helping to raise me. And same with my Uncle David. And they were just so much fun. I mean, they were just so much fun. We had so much fun as a family. And we didn't get into a lot of political conversations. We're not very political. Actually, most of Eisenhower's turned independent. And really more understand. They just have some sort of deeper understanding that just isn't your typical indoctrinated political person, which I really appreciated. But it was awesome because it was hard to talk about this kind of stuff. And when the Mars recruitment thing happened, I kind of brought it up like, this is really weird. Like, what do you guys think of this? It was connected to a group called the Aviary. You guys can look it up. John Alexander is one of the members. If you put his name in and the Aviary, those are the people that were involved. And they used my partner as bait. And they had him under some kind of MK Ultra deal. I have not been in those projects or programs, but I was targeted. I've been targeted pretty much my whole life to put me on a timeline I didn't want to be on. So I had to kind of download all this information. I had to figure out this larger picture kind of stuff because this was just a calling or a mission that I came in with, and also to connect dots and bring to light things that took place in his administration that have been held in secrecy, and all the blame put on him for the ET government treaties, which actually was done behind his back. My book will explain it all. I could get into greater detail, and I'll drop, some of this stuff in future shows. But so David and Julie, we come to our family reunions, which I think our last.
Again, David and Julie are his direct sons.
So John S.D. Eisenhower is the only son of Dwight David Eisenhower, and John's 4 kids, which are Eisenhower's grandchildren, is my mom, my Uncle David, my Aunt Anne, and my Aunt Mary. And my Uncle David married Julie Nixon, who's the daughter of Nixon. So it's interesting because my cousins have a grandfather Nixon and a great-grandfather Eisenhower, which is a lot.
That is a lot. Let's actually give everyone a moment to take that on. Imagine that in America, growing up and having a great-granddad on both sides that's both presidents. It's like...
And Nixon was the vice president of Eisenhower, right?
Say that again.
Nixon was Eisenhower's vice president. And then you got kids that are born into, the Eisenhower president and Nixon vice president. And they're very artistic. They didn't really move in the direction of anything. And I don't like the word politics, but anything in the governmental arena. Yeah, one's like an actress and a singer. The other one's works at a hospital. And anyway, so yeah, Uncle David and my Aunt Julie, I was very close with. And so in the later sort of family reunions, my Uncle David would bring a karaoke machine. And I couldn't believe that I'm like singing Led Zeppelin in front of the Eisenhower family. It was just so surreal. We just all have such a laugh, and we were doing like Carpenter duets, and we just have such a blast together. It's been such a loving family. It's been hard for me to share the level of information that I bring in to family members, but we all love and respect each other for whatever positions that we're playing in this world. There's a deep sort of underlying respect. And I've really grown very close to my mom over the years, particularly after I birthed my twins, who are now 24. They're not identical. And it's just, love has overridden everything. So I'm just really like impressed and amazed at just how much, love there is. I've gone through hell and back a number of times, and this is the kind of family that, has your back. even though I had to do a lot of it just all on my own. And I'm close with my father as well. So yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that. We lived a very sort of, then we moved to DC when I was 11 after my mom got divorced again. And then she married a Russian physicist, the science advisor to Gorbachev, who's a Russian scientist. But he stood up against being used as a physicist to create things that they wanted him to create. He sort of stood up against it like Sakharov. So my mom has written a few books. She wrote a book about him, The Making of a Soviet Scientist. His name is Rold Zogdayev. And they had political cartoons of the two of them. I went to Russia for their wedding. That was really trippy. And now they're just like best friends. But high school was really interesting because my mom was setting up a lot of stuff in the DC area, Washington, DC, like the Eisenhower Group, the Eisenhower Institute. And I worked for her a little bit. I'd just go and just do some database stuff just to make a little bit of extra money. But yeah, it was weird. A lot of my friends and people in high school didn't know that I had this relative, unless you were my boyfriend or a really close friend. It wasn't something I really talked about. And I just find it really odd that a lot of people think I'm a fraud or think I'm not related. I can understand if you've never talked to me before, but if you Google, you're going to see a lot of family trees that don't have me and don't have some of my other cousins. And I think missing maybe my siblings, right? So sometimes these things aren't updated, but it's the easiest thing to prove. I don't think I'd be able to be in the public eye for 10 years like I have been if I was kind of faking this.
I wouldn't worry about
we see each other all the time. It's like people can doubt all they want. I'm just amazed.
I don't think anyone is, honey. I think we had one troll sneak in.
Oh, no. But this is just something I've dealt with for a really long time. But it's so minor now and it's so easily ignored. But anybody who has any kind of doubts, we're not going to focus on that. That was just one person, but I know it's probably a lot. There are disinformation agents out there, but I live for integrity and truth. I'm here for truth. I'm not here to be biased. If there's uncomfortable things to share about Eisenhower, I've been willing, but I just ended up going down rabbit holes and found out a lot more that helped to clear up a lot of the disinformation in the disclosure community that was being shared about him. And it's not their fault. It's just these things are so top secret that even well-intentioned whistleblowers didn't have access to this information. Okay, but I'll leave it at that because I want to hear from you. How's your week been and anything lighting up in your life lately?
Well, as usual, as you're talking, I'm hearing all these things, like hearing things in response to what you're saying, which is really, really interesting. I almost like there was one just last thing. It's just as you said it, then I heard it, but I'm going to go back through this. Just looking at it, it's interesting to see when you talk with someone and you get this sort of history, when you can draw the parallels. My parents got divorced when I was 4 too, and I didn't really go to school much either at all, but I still graduated and I still got good exam results. It is what it is. I just, just showed up occasionally, but and definitely the black sheep of the family. But what's also interesting, and I think this is a testament to the fact that me and you have done some work on ourselves, a lot of work on ourselves, in that we can have these loving, respectful relationships with our family members while at the same time being on completely different pages with them. And so I think we're an example of that bridge thing that we've now mentioned on the last 2 shows, where it's possible to be you, do you, and at the same time still have love for your family and respect and enjoy company, enjoy every aspect of family. You don't have to be on the same side with everything. You don't need their approval, and I think this is part of, when you become an actual adult. Now, there's lots of 60-year-old children walking around, but when you become an actual adult, it's the day that you realize your parents are just people. And so when you realize that they're just people, and that you're now just a person and that you're an adult too, that's the end of that at that point. So now you can go about your business, you can do the healing you need to do, you can move into whatever direction in life you want to. And as long as you show them love, kindness, and respect, you can expect it in return. Yeah. And in a lot of families, it will maintain once you have done the healing work on yourself, because here's the thing, a lot of people are hearing this and I can almost feel an uproar, but people being like, oh my God, you should see what it's like in my family. No, here's the difference. We're not trying to control the thoughts of those people that have a different perspective.
Yeah.
We did the one-off warning, and then we back up and leave them to it. We did the one-off, this is what I think, please listen to me. I'd really like it if you listen to me. And then at that point, that's it. And so, so, whereas a lot of people are really pushing hard, this is just something that's just going on all around the world right now for truthers and spiritual people that are awake and aware, all the different words we want to use, you know, patriots that have been studying what's happening, all the things. There is this battle raging, and it's actually, it's rare for someone's bloodline to all be on the same page as them. There's some, I've had a couple of clients that have had that, it happens, and I'm like, wow, I wonder what your soul path journey is. I wonder what you were deciding in heaven before you came down here, to have this level of support in your entire, you know, family, brothers, sisters, mum, dad, the whole thing. But for a lot of us, it can be isolating. And so I think it's really important, as much as this show is all about the weird and wonderful things in the world, what we're actually demonstrating here is you can be as weird and as wonderful as myself and Laura, because we're pretty weird and wonderful. And while at the same time have very, you know, it's funny, in England we use the word conservative, but we don't mean it as a political thing. We mean it more like conservative as in, like, you know, people that are very kind of straight-laced and, you know, whatever, family members, and they be different from us, you know. So it's and it's okay. It's okay.
It is. Yes. And doesn't mean that. Go ahead. Yeah.
And I was going to say, and also I think it's because when you are very good at what you do, when you are living your God's mission, it's not always easy. In fact, it's a bit like a roller coaster. It's bumpy, because there is a battle between light and dark is constantly trying to knock us off of the roller coaster so that we don't ride through the ride. But saying that, when you are in your divine purpose and you are doing what you came down here to do, God does intercede and the right things happen. And that's how you end up with myself and Laura on here every Wednesday, here to support and love on everybody, because we have worked our way to this place. And I heard I was to ask Laura, she felt intuitively it was a yes. And here we are. We did it.
I know. And it's so great. This is our third show and it just feels so right and so comfortable. And just, gosh, I wasn't feeling that great earlier and I was just really tired. The minute I'm just like here, it just, energy completely shifts. And I knew that would happen. I just kind of had a weird night. We're just dealing with a lot of complaints because our animals are making noise and just trying to deal with that. But anyway, I really resonate with everything that you're saying. It doesn't mean that it's not been bumpy. My mom and I had a lot of friction because this level of information that I have, I mean, it's my niche kind of. Everybody's kind of got it. There's so many things that I don't know and understand that I learn from others all the time. But this has been a particular kind of arena that I've delved into because I noticed in the school systems that there's a lot of false history, a lot of rewritten history, a lot of unnecessary things that we have to like sit and listen to and regurgitate or just, and I just knew there was so much more. So I would just go to the library and study this sort of stuff. And then energeticsynthesis.com with Lisa Renee, that really just gave major terminology to the things that I was downloading and understanding throughout my whole life. So I just wanted to make sure I got that piece in because you did ask, where did I get my information? Then, of course, all the hidden things in Eisenhower's administration, just meeting whistleblowers and colleagues and researchers. And then when I was recruited to go off planet, I learned a lot about what happens behind the scenes. So I just wanted to throw that in. But no matter how rocky things can be with your family members, the minute you let go of needing to red pill them, the minute you let go of needing to be seen or validated for what makes you different and unique, the more you embody just that self-love and feeling really solid in who you are, they're just going to vibe with your vibe. And maybe the conversations will get more interesting, but it's not in a low vibration of trying to convince or struggle with trying to get them to see something. Now, I know that there's some things, of course, that we all want to warn our friends and family about that might be choices that could be detrimental. But I feel that if we don't dip down into the divide and conquer, if we can avoid the social engineering programs, that the frequency of love and unity and being in resonance is going to help to alchemize and neutralize and nullify a lot of these dark weapons. That's why it's no point in battling this out. And plus, for many, and I can say for a lot of family members in my life, they've already made that decision. So there's no use in making that decision seem uncomfortable for them. I'm empowering them. I'm like, I want them to feel safe and strong in that decision, because to me, the weapons or whatever might be weaponized, and I don't want to make bold statements or scare anybody that might have made that choice, can be de-weaponized. And the power of the mind and spirit is what can de-weaponize the weapon. So if there's any concern of any form of weaponry, if we can see it as a tool for growth so that we can reclaim our treasures and bring that energy in to transmute and alchemize and transform, then there isn't anything we can't heal, cure, or correct. I feel. What about you?
Yes, I think that's a great sort of next subject for us to move over to, because what we're doing is we're hitting on those ones that, like, a lot of people, even within our sort of truth or spiritual circles, not so comfortable hitting on. And that is, like, basically, once they've made the decision, do not cause pain. Do not cause pain, people. You know, that is karmically, or it's not Jesus-like behavior. It's not kind. So understand that your words have power, and your words can be a weapon, and it's very important. So the thing is there's a lot of people that are early in the wake up period. I learned a lot of this stuff in 2009. I'm not sure what year Laura would say she sort of got really hit with it because of the way her family lineage. It may have even been earlier, but for me it was 2009. But the thing is, and so I had a bit of time to get used to it. But some of the people that are kind of, I'm seeing it like an egg that's just broken, and there's a little chick and it's just started to walk, but it thinks it's a full blown like chicken, or you know, like the big male chicken, like walking about, you know. And the thing is actually, you know, if someone's made the decision, allow them the peace. Do not take their peace. Do not take the sense of security and safety that they feel away, because you are not helping them. And I'm saying this firmly, you are not helping them. And so, on the other hand, if someone's teetering on the edge about making a decision, I say go full of front, like the best lawyer you've ever seen. Like the best lawyer. I mean, I'm talking invest 18 hours of sending them research, reading things, do a full PowerPoint presentation. I mean, do everything in your power so you can hand on heart say, I did everything I could. Okay. Exactly. So, but if the decision's been made, the action's been done, now let's let them feel the safety, because the safety of that will actually enable a certain level of protection. The reason I say that is because fear undoes protection. Fear erodes the body. Fear erodes the cells. Fear creates cancer. You know, not that I'm a doctor, legal, blah, blah, blah. I'm not giving advice. But the point is that this is a really important thing to say, because a lot of people in the in our circles, and you know, in our truth circles, they have audiences that are just starting to wake up to this information. And the first thought when you wake up, I remember when I first learned this stuff, I did a mass email out to everyone in my entire email in one go. Hey guys, do you know this is going on? And people just thought I was completely loopy. But because that's the first reaction. I need to scream it from the rooftops. Now it's more like, okay, let me give water to the thirsty. So those that want to know more, let me give them more. And then those that really want more and want to tune in, and I'm going to give my time and I'm going to give, then you see that's what me and Laura are doing here now. But then at the same time in your personal lives, like even within dating, you know, if you're not someone who will date someone that's vaccinated, make it clear. But you don't need, and if they say they are, then say, okay, well, that's cool. Like, well, you know, great. Well, it was really nice meeting you, but you don't, that's enough there's enough doubt that you've left just by taking yourself out of the room. I don't even like creating that, honestly. I'd rather they just thought I was weird. I would rather they just thought I was weird, because again, we cannot.
I'm so much like you. Oh my God.
Because we cannot undo what they've done yet. Now, this is why, again, Laura's talking about things that other people do not talk about. So, will there be a solution for this thing? Well, in God's world, we are in God's world. There is a solution for everything. There is an equal opposite reaction for everything. We live in a a world where anything's possible. Do we know that it's going to be mass distributed really soon? No. Do we know that it will definitely be something that will exist at some point in the future, whether that's in 10 to 15 months or 10 to 15 years, hopefully not much more than that. But the point is, there is going to be solutions, okay, guys? So that they are going to come in. And so again, fight for people not to make the decision, but once they've made the decision, please leave them alone and let them have peace. Do not think that you're being a warrior. Do not think you're being a warrior by actually making other people become warriors. You're not helping. Okay. Back to you, Laura.
I love it.
I feel like we're on a newscast, and I just did the weather, and I'm like, yeah, over to you, Laura.
Oh, I know. I love it. It's so cool. It's great. Oh, and we're going to have guests, and we could even share pictures and slides sometimes if we want to do. I mean, the sky's the limit. I'm just super pumped. Yeah, it's so true. The most important thing is, I mean, I'm kind of like you, where I remember even as a kid, I would purposely, and maybe this isn't healthy, but it sort of has spilled over into being this older person. Not really an adult. I would purposely lose games just because I knew how important it was, for whether I was playing with my cousin or somebody younger than me or anybody who's like really competitive. And I know that's not really wise, but sometimes I would just kind of purposely like lose, or I would notice how much I would drop sometimes even my vibration to make other people feel better. Or sometimes even I just remember going through phases where I was afraid of being envied, or I was afraid of anybody feeling, because there's no reason to. First off, we shouldn't. I mean, healthy envy is not bad. Jealousy, I think everybody's hit that wall before. Maybe you think somebody's life is better. There's something about them that you admire, but we're really here to inspire people. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I don't like people feeling stupid. I don't like people feeling less than, because I know that feeling all too well. And I feel so protective over people feeling it that I almost, when I find myself talking to people that have gotten it, I default into just, really empowering them. And I'm kind of the crazy one. And maybe I'm missing something, I just.
No. I absolutely, I literally, that is my goal. With, particularly like with men or whatever, I would rather they just were like, she's really attractive, but she's insane. I'd rather that's the takeaway, with regards to someone who I would turn down due to having taken it. What I love with me and Laura is that, the way that God works, we do have our angels around us. We have our angels, and we all have the same angels. There's not different angels, if that makes sense, because they all work for the same God, the same source. So what I love is that when Laura's saying things and she's just feeling randomly led to speak on something, it pulls up something in me that I know I'm meant to share. And so it's great. I love it. When you talked about losing games, it reminded of me of being like 10 years old. Simon Park said I came from the 12th dimension and I went to a special school to study before I came down here. That's why I've been able to do the things I can do. And that I had some interesting times on this planet previously with some rather large roles, which I won't go into right now. But
right. No, I think we had that in common too.
Yeah. Some to do with Atlantis and all sorts. We'll do it another day. Like we're breaking everyone in gently on this, because this is the weird and wonderful Whimsical Wednesdays. Okay, guys, we'll spread out some of the weird shit. Oh, and I swore, trying not to swear on people. Anyway, so
I've been good so far. Wow, I usually actually drop F-bombs quite a bit. Keep going.
I do all the time, but they know I'm trying, and they haven't asked me not to. I just am trying not to.
Same.
Anyway, so about the losing the games, I'm 10, 11 years old. There was this private Japanese school near the school that I went to. And there was lots of, they invited us to come and be at the school for the day. But it was funny because we didn't actually get to meet any of the children. So it was almost like they invited us to come here, but the kids were all over there and we just got to be in their hallway, but, in their gymnasium. It was kind of random when you think about it. Anyway, but we had all these games set up that we were going to play, and again, I was completely unaware of this. I'm just this like hyper 11-year-old Amelia running around. If anyone could imagine what I was like at 11, it was a lot, Anyway, so we had all these games. Anyway, I won every single game, like every single game. I'm winning it, but to the point where but I wasn't trying to, but I hadn't learned at this point that I need to actually temper this. Like I hadn't learned yet that I could win every game. And so I'm like winning, like literally we're on the 8th game. And the only game I didn't win was the one with the circle where everyone sits on chairs and they pull a chair away and you go, musical chairs.
Yeah.
But the only one I didn't win was the boys' version of that because I wasn't in the game. But anyway, this was the point, was in me learning. Now that's why you said that. It was bringing up, this is another reason why me and Laura sort of bounce off each other well, because at a young age she realized that I need to, maybe let people win, and so that I don't take it. I didn't learn that at that time. I was just kind of surprised. I just thought it was interesting at this point. I thought it was curious that I could win everything. And I was like, well, why do I win everything? I don't know. This is weird, Anyway, then it's bringing me towards this idea of, there's a lot of people out there that are playing it small, that are not being in the full abundance of themselves, not really taking up space, not feeling worthy. And the two of these two things, they sound like they're separate, but it kind of connects together in that learning to become sensitive is important. And at the same time, there's those that have been playing too small because they are too sensitive about what other people think and not thinking enough about their own needs, and making sure that there's so many women and men that are playing it small. So that's why I want to make sure that what we're talking about here is not taken literally. It all depends on an individual situation. So you can have so learn how to play it down, because again, this is the thing, you can be the trutherest truther on the planet, but if you're in a room full of people that have all done the thing, you're not going to help anyone by installing a ton of fear. You're actually working for the enemy, because you're actually creating loosh to go up to the enemy, to then be used back against humanity. So this is the thing. Whereas at the same time, if you see someone playing small, this is a really good thing to actually try and help them open up and boost them and give them that boost to their self-esteem. And at the same time, not only help boost them, but also help to put them on the track of taking themselves towards boosting themselves.
Absolutely. That's the most important. Any kind of dependency is never healthy. But yeah, and I think at this stage in the game, that's completely possible. And I just was doing a show with somebody who I won't mention names, but she's never done a show before. She said, the reason I haven't wanted to is because people are so unkind. I see what you go through, the comments that you get, the way people treat you. I don't want to be subjected to that. And so I just gave her some tips about that. And I really feel, and at these times especially, that we can upgrade in the face of adversity. It doesn't matter what the adversity is. It's pushing us to access things that have been dormant. We wouldn't be challenged like this unless we were meant to ignite that spiritual athlete and spiritual warrior that can see these hurdles and obstacles as something to learn how to fly over and leap over, instead of keep hitting our heads and feeling victimized and feeling injured constantly and feeling picked on, or like this is nothing but one assault or a false flag or psyops after another. And when will it ever end? I feel it's pushing us to the edge so that we can remember the fullness of all that we are. And that's in the micro sense, and the stuff we're talking about, just in the way that we navigate, how, sometimes it's kind of cliche, but I tell clients, just dance like nobody's looking. It's like, just free yourself. If you're paying attention to the crowd, that's going to mess with your head. It's sort of like being in a parade. And if you're throwing out something a little healthier than candy for this metaphor, but if you're throwing out a bunch of stuff into the crowd and you're concerned what they're doing with it, and you get off the parade and you jump in and you're like, are you going to eat that? Or like, what are you doing with it? Why are you smashing it? Or why are you giving it away? Or you're going to save it for next year? And then somebody might be just gobbling it all down. But if you lose your center and you just don't keep moving forward and you pay too much attention to that, it can kind of trip you up. Now, it's very important to get feedback. We love having questions. There's a question here I'm going to answer. It's a quick question about Ike. But yeah, if we lose kind of our footing and pay too much of attention, that can be very derailing. But again, interaction's important, and making sure that the trolls aren't there is a very necessary thing for folks like us. So don't be afraid to be the fullness of all that you are. There's nothing more healing than living your truth, because your body loves it. That frequency that streams through your nervous system and creative channels and all your organs and your circulation, that truth frequency is the most healing thing you can possibly do. It's these subpersonalities and these false personas, or just being constricted or afraid. Yeah, that is, to me, the root of disease. So
yeah, absolutely.
Or some diseases.
It's
maybe not monkeypox.
Yes. And then for some reason, something that my angels, for anyone who doesn't know, I hear God, but I sometimes hear my angels, and my angels are like the childlike version, because God's voice can be quite serious for me to hear all the time. So anyway, my angels were just saying that an example was with regards to energy, that basically if you scare people that have made this particular decision, you're actually stealing some of their energy, and it makes you it makes you a spiritual vampire to steal the energy. Okay, so we want people to get conscious of that. Okay, so this is an important thing to spread the word amongst the community, that what's done is done, and do not steal their energy, because you're actually working for the enemy and doing that. And so just as another example of unhealthy energy stealing is, for example, let's imagine someone, say some lady gets some amazing car, okay, and driving this car, her feeling superior to other women of her age, if that superiority feeling, if that's how she's drawing energy through the jealousy of others, that is another unhealthy energy. So we got to start looking at the different energy exchanges happening within humanity. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get a lovely car. Get a lovely car. Everyone get a lovely car if you can. It's fine. The point is that if you are absorbing the feeling of superiority and stealing it from those around, then you are now siphoning others rather than giving to others. Now, it's so important that we're in a state of service to others, but to be in a state of service to others and to actually be able to exist there in the long term, you have to be full 100% self-love first. So you have to be self-love. It's like put on your uniform, which is your self-love, your armor, what soldiers put on, the metal armor. Put on your armor, which is your self-love. Then go into service to others. But the superiority and the haughtiness thing is another thing that I just want people to just start becoming aware of, because like you said, you didn't want people to make people feel jealous or anything, so you would play small when you needed to. I've since learned that too, and sometimes I'll be in certain places and people don't realize who I am or what I do. And when they find out, they're kind of surprised, but knowing how to do that, particularly like if I'm in an Uber or something as well, I feel like I'm there to serve that person because God's put me with them. And I'm like, how can I help you? What do you need? How can I advise you? Do you want me to pray for you? Like, what would you like me to do? That's what I do. Now, the superiority and the haughtiness is something that's so big, particularly here in America, like where I see it, of people, and judgment, superiority, and haughtiness are the three words I would like everyone who watches this to write down. And I'll explain haughtiness. It's kind of like the superiority, but the judgment. So people can, because I remember the day that I was like, okay, from now on, any thought that comes out of my head, I'm going to make sure. So any thought that comes up in my head, I'm going to ensure that it's not one of judgment before it comes out my mouth. Because there's so many people that think that they are superior to others, when in fact the thought of superiority is actually placing them on the side of the enemy. They are actually, and that they are siphoning others by doing that.
That's so true. It's the same thing with like seduction. It's when it's not for higher reasons of maybe love or connection or true intimacy or soul bonding, and it's just for getting attention. I mean, I know people have insecurities and they want to feel validated. We're raised that way. But, and I'm not saying don't have basic self-care and there's that, or like dress to where you feel beautiful. But you can see where the energetic cords come in, where, people really do want that attention. And when they get it from the wrong person, then they feel victimized, or they feel, I think the Me Too thing was like super important, but I felt like it covered up a lot of the human trafficking stuff and a lot of the pedophilia stuff. A lot of those stories were extremely important, and some of them were just, wow, he groped my back. It's like, okay, tell the dude to cut it out if you don't like it. But I mean, Garrison Keillor lost his career because of that, but all this other stuff is kind of going on. And I'm not trying to be in judgment. I'm very careful as well, but people have to be very careful how they work their energy. And I'm not saying that they asked for it. It's not like slut shaming because I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing, but we have to figure out a way to heal these distortions, to find greater maturity so that we can really feel embodied, because we are all our sexual beings, but let it stay integrated, or let it become integrated with spirituality and creativity and integrity. And I think people have a lot easier time. It'll help to mature the divine masculine in the men that are trying to find that again. Women can't play into what brings out the worst in men as much as vice versa. So it's a two-way kind of deal. There's a quick question, but yeah, any kind of thoughts on that? I hope I didn't sound judgmental.
No, you're fine. And that's the thing. Like I said, I think that, the judgmental thing, it's interesting because sometimes I speak to people and they're like, oh, and I don't want to
totally passion for the programming, by the way. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So when people say, oh, I don't want to judge, or I don't judge, let people do their thing. Some people are oversensitive on making sure they don't judge. There's almost like imagine there's a barometer. There's like people judging away, but thinking they're holier than thou, and that they are, they're doing everything right and they do this and they do that. But in fact, they are completely filled with superiority, haughtiness, and judgment. Then you have people on this side that are like, I don't want to judge, but it's now actually there's like a fear of, not being accepted.
These things need to be called out. It's not a vibration of judgment. It's just noticing this is how we are raised. This is part of the programming that we can break and we can help each other.
Yeah. So for me, judgment. Judgment has a negative. It's a poison arrow. When you're judging because you're firing a poison arrow.
It's more to a person personally when you're just insulting them. When we're talking about general things and just terms without picking people apart or. Yeah, sorry, keep going though. Yeah.
So the way I see it though is that, like I said, there's some people that have become oversensitive about judgment, and it's actually restricting them from speaking their truth as fully as they should. So absolutely, the word you said there was observance. It's like, for me, if someone actually thinks I'm being judged, I'm like, I am speaking what I am seeing. I am observing it and stating it to be what I see. Yeah. That is different. That is different.
Judgment, would be to me making a rude comment under somebody's post, or just holding a really toxic energy within yourself in the way that you view somebody when you don't even know them, maybe, and you haven't walked in their shoes. Yes. Then judgment of just having discernment and concern and just observing, that's like a higher form of judgment. Even in the tarot, there's a judgment card. And I'm like, whoa, that's interesting, because in a different deck, it's called the Aeon, right? But it's a higher vibration that has to do with making a choice. And that's different than the lower vibration. And it's funny because like planets, words, they're different octaves depending on the tone and intention. That same word can sound awful. And sometimes if the intent is good, that word doesn't sound bad at all.
And I think that comes back to something that I always have talked about in many shows. Intent is everything. And that's the thing. So if the words coming out of your mouth are designed to steal the energy from somebody, or to make them feel lower, either make them feel lower or for you to, if you're harnessing energy from them or in some way by putting them down or vice versa, then it's judgment. But at the same time, we don't need to be pussyfooting around. We need to be able to speak the truth and say things as they are, because this is how we move forward. Truth is truth is truth is truth. Oh, yeah. It's the truth, Yeah. I agree. Let's address those questions. And I want everyone to know we will be doing this every Wednesday. So please tell your friends, make sure you let everybody know. And we will be here every week as well. So just start getting questions together. And we're open to the more weird, wacky, wonderful questions, the better. But if you want it to be something that's more simple and everyday, that's cool too. So just letting everyone know. Yeah, over to you, Laura, if you want to.
I just wanted to, one final thought about what we were talking about. Humility is really important. I mean, we're going to accidentally maybe offend somebody. People have a lot of trauma and triggers that even just the most well-intentioned thing can sometimes be heard wrong if that person's, but we can always self-correct. We can always, the thing is, just like in relationships or friendships, it's not about accidentally making an error and then feeling bad. It's about being able to move forward with that person and work it out and take responsibility as well. Because I know with my partner, when I'm triggered, I'm like, I know this is probably, an old trauma or something reminding me of my ex. I want to take responsibility, but I really wanted to understand your intention because I'm not hearing it right. And I try and be as mature as possible. So I just wanted to add that. And I know you probably have a lot to say on that, and we'll get to it. And
we'll do that one on another show. We'll do that.
Yeah.
One.
I mean, I know. Are we just
really excited because of them understanding about your connection, obviously, with your great granddad, and there's a lot of questions about that. So go ahead.
And then I have to give you guys the short version. I will share more in other episodes.
We'll do part 2 next week.
What's that?
We can do part 2 next week.
Yeah. But real quick, his spiritual struggle. I don't want to speak on behalf of him. I just know that he was the one that put "In God We Trust" on the money to counteract a lot of the Illuminati symbolism. He was a very spiritual man. He really loved humanity, and his background and we're descendants actually of Mennonites, and so the farming life has been very much a part of that side of the family, and they were very sort of strict on a religious level growing up, but none of him and his brothers, I think he had 7 brothers, ended up staying strict in religion, but he always stayed spiritual. And what I love is the love letters he wrote to Mamie Eisenhower. They're the most deep and beautiful, they make me cry. They're the most beautiful love letters. And they wrote to each other every day while he was in the war. So I just think that alone speaks volumes about a person's spirituality when they just really honor the sacredness of love and connection and family. He was such a family man. And he's been so good to me on a spirit level. He's really been there. And some interesting channelings have brought a lot of information and messages from him. And I used to be able to get more direct messages, but I get too emotional. I think he's just like, okay, I'll just hang with you, but like, I don't want to make you cry too much. All right. I don't know. So yeah, Valthor and Ike, I just know that they have stayed very connected after Valthor was put on VIP status at the Pentagon. They had an exchange before he actually came to the Pentagon, and he helped connect Eisenhower with the sphere beings to set up things like the Earth Alliance, the White Hats, and some other things. And this comes from the senior advisor to the Earth Alliance directly. So I don't have fixed beliefs. I wasn't there, but this person is so credible. He's not looking for anything from sharing this info with me. There's no big red flags. And so that's very interesting. And I'll leave it at that because I know we're leaving it to an hour, and I just want to bring it back to you and how you want to wrap this up, or any other thing you want to talk about. And I don't know if we're allowed to go a little bit over the hour. No, yes.
I think there may be someone booked in after us. So
okay.
We have to keep it quite on the hour, because the way that the channel works is that gradually, if it isn't now, there'll be someone straight after. I think there is actually someone straight after us. So
okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
So you take it away and close it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're good. We still got 4 minutes or 4 minutes, I think, or 6 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes. So again, if anyone has any questions, drop them in. We can always come back to them afterwards. I feel like a lot of the things, the one thing that I just got was when you were talking about him with the love letters, the message that came through from my angels was just about loving wholeheartedly. And I feel like we've sort of come full circle, because we keep referring back to this bridge, which again, I have been teaching how to create that in my program, but I didn't have that terminology. The terminology came from Laura. And so this bridging of how you can maintain relationships with people that may or may not be toxic, may or may not be making decisions that you would make, whatever it is, there are ways to bridge it. And there's ways to do it by loving wholeheartedly. But again, I cannot press enough, because there's so many women out there. I can feel the energy of so many women loving wholeheartedly, and they're getting hurt from it. It's because they haven't loved themselves wholeheartedly first. It's got to happen. There is no other way, and no one else can do it for you. You could have the most amazing partner in the world, the most amazing best friend, and the most amazing daughter. If you do not love yourself wholeheartedly, no one can do it for you. So I feel like something else I'd like people to write down is about loving wholeheartedly and turning the mirror on themselves initially and seeing where are they not loving themselves wholeheartedly. Maybe you have some extra weight that you would rather not have. Well, what if you can love that first? I guarantee if you can love it, then God is going to start being able to give you direction of how you can heal and start coming out of it. But you have to love it first.
So true.
So wholehearted love. And so I think, and then that connects to the other sort of line that's been connecting through today's conversation of intent, because if you love wholeheartedly, then your intent and intentions are always good. So yes, if we do trigger people that are watching, I don't feel any guilt or shame from it, because I know my intention is good. I wholeheartedly love myself and wholeheartedly love everyone watching.
I love you. You're awesome.
Thank you. So that's the message I'm getting, is us just staying in this wholehearted energy, because a lot of things on this earth, all the things that the enemy has been doing has been to destroy the heart, to destroy the healthy families, to destroy the relationship between parents and their children, husbands and wives, the love for self. All of this is, so it's time for us to fight back. But sometimes fighting can actually be you sitting there and working out where you don't like, what you don't like about yourself, and turning it around and start affirming that you actually love it and that you love you. And I want to mention that if you go on my website, I'm trying to remember which one. So you have the Amelia Love World, which is where you can get to all of my websites. So that's the best one to go to if you just want to go to one. But I think it's the Amelia Love Academy. When you go through to book a free call, if you scroll down just a little bit further down, you can actually download a free affirmation track. So this is great for women. If you're a man, you can download it, write your own affirmations, and just use it as inspiration, and then record it in your own voice. But starting today and in identifying those areas where you're lacking love for self, let's start getting those filled up, because that is part of your armor that you're going to need for the days coming ahead. The more you love yourself, the more protected you will be, and the more you will be able to help and protect others.
Beautiful. Totally. Yeah. And that's really also how we connect to Mother, Father, God, or the Christ Sophia template, really, because we're nurturing our inner child. We're needing that unconditional love. We need to bring it into those places. I think a lot of people who might have heard of the Hawkins scale, where the lower frequencies are fear, guilt, shame, anger. We're human. We're going to visit those areas of ourselves. So not just the physical part. And I know you're talking about way more than just the physical, but that's a huge one for people.
Mm-hmm.
But also just those places of when you do dip down into those lower energies, that for you to work through it, that you give it unconditional love, like it's a screaming child that just wants to be held instead of judged or condemned because it's not enlightened enough. I mean, we are dealing with some very difficult times right now, so cut ourselves some slack. Anyway.
Yes, I agree. So be gentle with yourself, be gentle with others. And as a predominantly female audience within this patriotic community, be the ones that are actually thinking about what you say, and having be that matriarch that's ensuring that people are not getting hurt around you for no reason. I think it's really important. Well, thank you, Laura. The time has flown like so fast. It's so fast. I love you, darling.
I love you. I love everybody here. Thank you so much for checking us out, and I look forward to next week. Amelia, yes, you're amazing. All right, everybody.
See you next week. Bye. Love you, everyone. Bye.